The son of one of Norfolk's best remembered politicians has been explaining why he's written a book about his father's death. Paul Howell was the county's European MP in Brussels for more than 15 years. He was on the spot when the Israeli Prime Minister was assassinated, when the Berlin Wall came down and when the Soviet Union ceased to be. He was photographed brawling in Brussels, and finally he left the Tory party disillusioned because of his colleagues' Euroscepticism. He survived one aeroplane crash in 1981, but he was killed in another some 27 years later while living in Africa. His eldest son, William, was 18 when his father died, and he's written a book about his bereavement called Affable in Adversity. And a little earlier he came on the line to tell me about it.
It was never intentionally meant to be a book. Struggled for over 4 years. I couldn't really come to terms with it. I refused to accept it had happened. And it became a strain on family and friends. And it was January the 3rd, 2013, that I truly decided that I'd had enough. And in April that year, I decided that the only way I was going to get over it was to write something to myself, a note, just to express myself more than anything. And I wrote about 90,000 words in 4 months while I had a full-time job. And it was when I read it back that I decided that this could be something that other people had been through bereavement.
So the writing process was like a therapy to you?
Absolutely. It was completely that. Even when I read it back now, I learn more about myself. It's self-assessment like I've never used to. And it's just that step where I'm very much comfortable in the position I am now.
Was it like a stream of consciousness, or would you sit down and think about it, say, for an hour and then write?
I never planned any of it. It simply started out writing it year by year. I remember it all surprisingly well. Each of the events, whether they were little ones, whether it was when I got the news, the actual event itself, the pursuing moments, when the media arrived, everything just sort of poured out, and there was no plan to it. It just took that role on from year to year, and that's how I've written it.
You're 25 now, but at the time you were 18 and just beginning university, and it's a big pivotal point in someone's life, isn't it?
I found it hardest because of the situation I was in, more than the age. I'd been at university for 3 days, a university where I purposely picked it because I wanted to start something else, meet new people. I didn't know anyone at that university, and thus when I got the news I had no one to turn to. And when I returned, I went home for 3 weeks, and I came back, and there was still no one that I knew there. I became very close. Behind closed doors, I was a wreck, tears. I found it very, very hard. I had insomnia for 8 months. And it became so much so that I never had any other way of dealing with it. It was always a mask on outside my bedroom. But inside it was a completely different story. It just had me, and it's to an extent still like that now, although I'm opening up more. The book has helped with that a lot. So
is the book mainly reminiscences, memories of your dad that you experienced, or maybe telling the story of his life? What is the format of the book?
The book opens up with a fond memory I have of Dad, but it's completely about the situation I found myself in after his death. The first year, I very much changed as a person. I became someone I thought my dad would want me to be. Started campaigning on numerous by-elections. I studied history and politics at Oxford Brookes, the city where my dad went to university. It all seemed to be for Dad. And second year went very much the other way. I started going out more. I wasn't the recluse I was in the first year, but I went into drugs. I dabbled in hard drugs, but it was never an addiction to that. I smoked marijuana a lot, and that's truly where an addiction came in. And it kind of stayed with me through third and fourth year. I struggled very much with it. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to recognise it had happened to me. I was angry. I couldn't find myself getting close to anyone anymore because I was scared I would lose them. I lost Paul Whittam, my godfather, a year after Dad, someone I was very close to. I lost Reg Simmons a year after that, someone else I was close to. It just seemed a repetitive pattern, and one I was very scared to get close to anyone ever again. And the whole journey of the book is how I found myself. I felt guilty if I ever smiled or laughed, felt guilty for having fun. I was lost, I was in a dark place. The only person I wanted to speak to was the one person who had been taken from me. It's a completely misunderstood situation. Losing your dad or anyone is not just that impact. It's the things that you have to deal with afterwards that I really wanted to help people with, not just the people going through it. I wanted to help my mother understand, and other mothers, other family members understand the mindset someone can be in. I wanted to help friends understand so that they could help anyone they know who suffers from bereavement. I wanted to write it from a perspective that would enlighten people to what happens after someone dies.
Your father was a larger-than-life character, wasn't he? He was a politician who could talk on the TV, on the radio, and give speeches. Did you feel then that this whole side of his personality, this very colourful side of things, made him more difficult to replace in your life?
There is no replacing Dad. It is simple as that. He was so flamboyant in everything he did. He was such a big personality. There's an absolute void which is still missing. But it's one which is filled by so many memories because every single day was a memory with Dad. It was always an adventure. He refused to let anything else happen. He took Ollie and I on adventures every single day, and it's something I'm very appreciative for.
Ollie's your brother, isn't he?
Oliver is my younger brother. And he just truly gave us a way of thinking that made life important, that you knew what you had to do, what made life what it is. And it's still the values that he taught me when he was around are still values that I treasure today and try to make sure that I now put out.
And you clearly hope that the book will help others who are in a similar position. It's almost a hidden problem that we don't hear about, but it's there, and there are people in similar positions.
Absolutely. I want people to know that what they're feeling is not abnormal in any sense during that time. I want people to know that other people are going through the same thing. It's a taboo topic for someone who's going through bereavement to talk about. You don't want to bring it up with other people because you don't want them to feel awkward. You don't want to be that person. You have this real sense of you lost someone so close that it's so hard for anyone else to understand, and that becomes a real problem. You start feeling very lonely, and it can only go one way unless you really want to change it. Everyone goes through a journey in bereavement, their own journey, and that's important. But I wanted to make sure that these people, anyone reading this book, anyone who's been through the same thing, can deal with it in a better way than I did.
Well, the book is called Affable in Adversity. It's by my guest here, William Hunter Howell. And how can people get hold of copies? Are they available in the shops?
It is exclusive to the Amazon Kindle at the moment. As an independent writer, that was the main avenue I could go down to get it out to everyone. And I wanted to make it for a price which wasn't going to be... It's simply there just to help others. It's nothing else than that.
Well, thank you very much, William, for coming on to tell us about it. And let's just remind everyone, Affable in Adversity, and it's available via the Amazon Kindle. That's correct, isn't it?
Absolutely.